All right, so we can get started. Before we get started in the talk, I'd like to thank all the co-hosts here. I'll just name it real quickly. It ranges from all the way to Hawaii to the Florida coast, so we'll start off in no particular order. The Kansas City section, all from IEEE, the New Orleans section, the Black Hills subsection, the San Diego section, the San Diego section with the Computer Society chapter, the Ozark, the Northwest Florida, Baltimore section, Shreveport, Coastal Los Angeles section, the Computer Society, San Fernando Valley section, which consists of the joint chapter of Computer Society and the Communications chapter, the Wichita section, the Hawaii section, Computer Society, and the Pikes Peak section with the Computer Society and Life Member Affinity Group, co-hosting this series of events with Kent Lambert's talk kicking off with a call to action uniting tech innovators, policy leaders, and businesses to safeguard digital privacy, and with a subheading of AI and digital privacy paradox. I met Kent while I was stationed at Peterson Air Force Base at Colorado Springs, Colorado. I was working at U.S. Space Command and he was working at Air Force Space Command, and that's where our paths crossed. I retired in 2003 and he retired 2004 after 30 years of faithful service in the United States Air Force. So he retired as a colonel. Right after that, a couple years later, he became a former state senator and a former Colorado state representative. I believe 2007 to 2011 as a state representative, and 2007 to 2019 or 18 as state senator. He's currently the chief operating officer for Blockframe Inc. and works with Dr. Chris Gorog. Kent Lambert's always learning, so he's getting his doctorate in Colorado State under cybersecurity. And with that, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Kent Lambert, former Colorado State Senator and State Representative Kent Lambert.
Thanks so much, John. Just one public service announcement. I think I hear some sort of like a low battery chirp in the background every...
That's mine. I turned off I took off all the batteries of my fire alarms, and I still can't figure out. I turned off and I still can't find where that sound is coming from. Okay. And I'll mute myself so it won't distract your presentation.
Okay, thank you. And I'll make one correction there. I'm actually, Chris Garog, who's on the line, got his doctorate in cybersecurity. Mine's actually in systems engineering at Colorado State University, which since I've been there has now become the largest non-military department for system engineering, as I understand it, in the United States. So it's really kind of an interesting program. If you have any questions about that, I have my email address at the end of this briefing, and for any reason, if you'd like to contact me, you're welcome to do so at my email address. Again, thank you, John. I'm Kent Lambert. Let's see if I can advance the slide here. I want to give a little context of what IEEE is doing in digital privacy. Future Directions takes on projects that are cross-cutting across like all the societies, all the different regions, things like that. And a couple of years ago, they started this digital privacy initiative because it's so important. They've gotten so much momentum in that area that they took this on as a multi-year project. Not sure how long that's going to last, but it's a way of jump-starting the issue across all of IEEE. What I've been involved with is a subgroup of that we have a Digital Privacy Initiative Policy and Legislation subgroup, of which I am the chair. We have, probably a dozen people working on that subgroup. And I just wanted to, I'll show you a little bit of how we fit into the Digital Privacy Initiative in a second. But this is the overall charter of this Digital Privacy Initiative. It's IEEE wide, not just the United States. We have a lot of participants from Europe, from Asia, Mexico, that have attended our meetings, just on even our policy meetings. So one thing is unique is we want to focus this, first of all, on the IEEE, since it's a professional organization. We're trying to do this professionally for technologists, but also look at the needs of individuals. In the area of digital privacy, there have been a lot of abuses, frankly, by some of the industrial verticals in this area. And we wanted to see, who are we really working for on this? And we want to look at our membership, but also how do individuals, in the context of the big ocean of IT and artificial intelligence and things like that, who's speaking up for individuals in general. So we want to have a future where we have capabilities and maybe some tools, inventions that allow privacy to go down to the individual level, so they can have their integrity and their digital identities online and not feel that their safety or their privacy is being compromised, by clickbait or by any other methods of exploitation of individuals. And this has gotten more important as we've gone along, and we have several instances we'll talk about. But this has gotten the attention of the White House, of Congress, of the different states. And when I was in the state legislature in Colorado, sponsored some privacy legislation and some cybersecurity legislation. But this is now getting more important throughout the country and throughout the world. So how as technologists, as engineers, or as scientists, do we really engage in this conversation about digital privacy? And we've kind of decided that more holistic approach. We can't do it by ourselves, but we also have to at least consider all the other regimes here of economic or financial activity that's going on that uses the internet and uses digital data. We have to consider the legal histories of privacy, because they can be close allies, or they can stop things from happening as well. And then also, how does society as a whole deal with their own concerns, their individual concerns about privacy? So we've taken an approach that will try to facilitate a very cross-disciplinary collaboration. We're doing some research. We want to look at best practices, and in the output, when we get done, we want to encourage the use of new tools, new capabilities, new analyses that will help raise the discussion about digital privacy, and coordinate this across all of IEEE and also beyond that into legislative communities, into social communities, wherever this discussion of digital privacy is taking place. As I promised, this was a breakdown of the subgroups that we have just within the Digital Privacy Initiative. I say, this is me up here and my little team, but we work very closely on a regular basis with all of these other subgroups. And I'll mention that if you're interested in any of these subgroups, we'll have some contact information on the last slide, but please contact us, because you may be interested in joining some of these subgroups, especially the industry verticals here of healthcare, connected vehicles or electric vehicles, some may say, the whole energy sector, is very important for people's privacy. And of course, the glue that holds that together is IT and digital communications for all these things. But we've made, I think, significant progress in each one of these subgroups. So, like education, we've actually had educational books that we put out, things like that, that you may be interested in if you want to follow up on that. So getting back to the subject at hand here, tech innovators, policy leaders, and businesses. How do we safeguard our digital privacy? And I think, John, I don't know how you slipped this in on me, but you wanted to talk about AI and digital privacy paradox, which is kind of a paradox in itself, because if anybody can pop up with a really good one-sentence description of what digital privacy or AI is, please let me know, because some of these definitions, we use them all the time. We use the terms, but it's kind of hard to get a handle on these amorphous ideas like artificial intelligence. So we're pushing toward inserting them into our engineering technologies, but do we really know what they are? Do we know what the effects of AI are, for example? And as professionals, how can we use our technologies in a good way to represent the expectations that individuals have about their own privacy? So these are kind of some rules of thumb that we're trying to work with. We'd like to envision a very high level descriptive view of what digital privacy is, and how can we include the different viewpoints that different communities or industries might have of digital privacy. And then can we orient it around the individuals? So just a couple of questions about that. We have a lot of conflicting viewpoints. So we asked ourselves the question, can we create some sort of model that will help define and compare these different conflicting viewpoints? Some people, and there's a little quote there at the bottom, are we split along the lines of the engineers versus the lawyers? Who within IEEE really speaks for privacy? And I say just the colloquial term here, I guess an engineer is a geek and lawyers are policy wonks, but how do we get together? Because we both need each other. Another paradox is, who are we representing? Are we representing the individuals, like the little guys who don't have the money to represent themselves professionally? Or do we also have to consider the big guys, the big tech, the big business, the big government that are using the tools? And do we have to trust them to provide quality digital privacy to the little guys? Because so far, how is that working, frankly? We keep seeing, here a lot of doomsday predictions that if we don't get our hands around this, it's not just security, but it's also on privacy, what's going to become of our society with potentially bad products or bad exploitations? So again, is artificial intelligence a good thing we need to look at, but is it currently designed to protect your digital privacy, or does it have the potential to destroy it? I mean, we've already seen in the popular press, well-known people, singers, everything else, that are suing some platforms because they have intruded upon or distorted their own identities. So I think this is a pretty good summary statement here. And this I don't want to attribute to any particular person, but it's come up in our meetings. With all this explosion of data and AI, this has surged to the forefront everywhere for discussion. So even speaking for IEEE, we have a lot of legal perspectives for how to solve the problems. but they can't really go forward very well without a good technological background and assistance, so they can really solve some of the problems and get that into good, either good court cases or into good legislation that will actually solve some of the problems. So I'll start talking about the digital privacy model that we came up within the Digital Privacy Initiative. And this is readily available. We call it Achieving Privacy Expectations in the Digital World. But this link right here, you go right to the model itself. And if you forget this, just remember digitalprivacy.ieee.org. That's real simple. And right on the front page, you can drill down into the digital privacy model, and you can download what we have. So again, this is a descriptive model. It's not a Monte Carlo simulation or anything like that. Just a simple, evolving, easy to understand visual representative across several of the aspects of digital privacy. And this is to get the conversation going and understand the scope of the problem and how it cross-cuts into different fields. Again, focusing on individuals' expectations of privacy, and I'd say Sridhar Rao is another one of our volunteers who's done a great deal of work on this. And we've also published an article by me that if you want to look at that, that's also easily discoverable here on digital privacy at IEEE.org. So this is the first step of looking at the model, addressing the question of what are the expectations that individuals have about their own privacy. And after lots of discussions, we found out, or we believe that these 6 characteristics may be the best way to describe this environment that we have around each individual as to what sort of characterizes their privacy. Certainly identities, their digital identities, are things that can be distorted. But also, how do you track people's behaviors? Have you ever gotten on and, oh, I got a note from my doctor, and I click into the portal, and it asks me, okay, well, if you're willing to have our terms of service, click here. Do we really understand what those terms of service are? Probably not. But that's the behavior that we've been led into, and when we click that, are we actually agreeing to share our private, personal, or medical data with somebody else that we don't know about? That's the kind of behavior that we have to watch in every aspect of privacy, whether it's your bank or your doctor's office or your school or whatever it is. The behaviors are what quite often hackers or those people who might exploit your privacy are also looking at. Inferences are a little bit more esoteric. And if you see that third little box up there, we have the 2 Greek masks that are used in drama, if you're happy or glad or whatever. And masks are becoming more and more important within virtual reality, within artificial intelligence. If somebody goes into a chat room or works into online gaming or something like that, they are probably going to be profiled, and their identity is going to be abstracted to a point where you may not recognize who they are, or they may be putting information in there where other people can identify who they are in a negative way. And think of, I don't know, TikTok, Facebook, whatever it is, any of the AI platforms can misrepresent people to the extent where it looks very real. They infer who their identities are, but it may in fact not be those individuals at all. If you don't believe that, just watch the political ads and things like that that are being generated. And you can see how misinformation or mischaracterization is going to be really infecting our society. People also regularly have transactions. Think of financial transactions. Anything you do with your checkbook or paying bills or whatever it is, it identifies who we are. If you want to know what you are and what you do, if I can hack into your bank account, that's going to tell me a lot about who you are. So definitely something we want to protect. Now, within the grasp of the little individual on the screen, there are a few things that individuals can do directly. Their own confidentiality and integrity. There are tools to help people log on with the right credentials and things like this, and have access and observability. But how confident are people in whether those things really work? Sure, I can get my typical security platform, and if I put it on my computer, maybe I'll feel a little safer. But have I really protected my privacy or not? I think very, very few people can say that they're confident that their privacy is adequately protected. So within that, each individual is sort of at the mercy of several different influences in the in the environment of privacy. And we would, as engineers within IEEE, we would like to start out with that technical level on the left-hand side. And within our frame of reference, we would like to establish technical standards and best practices and architectures and everything that we do as engineers to support the expectations of privacy that our clients or our people purchasing our products would like to have. However, I think that people quickly realize that there are a lot of other people playing in the same game to try to either exploit your privacy or to help your privacy. Government regulations is a big part of that. GDPR in Europe, or some of the standards that come up within the California state standards, are starting to drive industries and government oversight and the enforcement of privacy problems. Economic influences are huge. Okay, can I really expect to have a good handle on my own individual digital privacy if some of those big companies with their platforms are making their money by taking my individual identity away from me or exploiting it somehow, hacking into my bank accounts, things like that? That should be my own private business, but yet we know it happens all the time. Can legislatures identify laws that are going to set up some rules in the road? And do they work with the judicial system, which quite often, lawsuits, things like that come in and may take years to actually enforce certain legal standards in the courts? Is that adequate? And of course, the individual, again, should have a strong voice in this system, within this ecosystem. And then we have a lot of sort of undefined cultural and societal influences. We're dealing with countries all over the world in digital privacy, or I'd have to say some places just don't have the same standards or expectations themselves as we do in the United States or in Canada or North America. And we are talking to those individuals as to how do those cultural differences or religious differences change in different parts of the world, because it's a global community when we're talking about digital privacy, because the digital ecosystem touches everywhere in the world in its scope. Now, putting these things together, this is what we envision as the model itself, always with the human individual centric focus in the center, but all of the other activities around it are expectations within the blue circle, and all of the other external influences in the yellow or gold circle. This is sort of the model itself. It's not to advocate, let's have a judicial court action or necessarily go to the legislature and pass a particular bill, but is to show that this is very, very cross-cutting if we are going to have successful policies and successful tools and engineering to address these problems. So the digital privacy model, I'd say it's a work in progress. It combines those 6 characteristics of individuals' expectation of their privacy, mapped on those 7 primary influences, the technical, regulatory, legal, individual, and so forth, to try to define a robust digital privacy infrastructure. We're not taking any sides as far as to what countries this may involve or which industry, but it's probably applicable to almost any discussion anywhere we talk about it. So we want to encourage cross-functional exchanges of ideas, whether it's in academia or whether it's in conferences or whether it's in white papers, whatever we do in IEEE or the larger community, we're looking toward building a digital privacy ecosystem. Now here's a poser question. As professional engineers and a professional engineering organization, how should IEEE advocate for our own ethics, which should be the basis of what we do professionally, and effective digital privacy policies? We have to get away from the idea that it's us versus them. Like, is it, the electrical engineers versus the lobbyists in the legislature, or versus the lawyers in the courts? We have to work together with all of these people to really influence digital privacy to do what we're supposed to do in IEEE, which is advance technology for the good of humanity. So we already have that model. It's very easily downloadable with a lot of other things off the website that we gave you. So what are the next steps? We know that technical breaches are quite often where personally identifiable information is lost or hacked into. We know that privacy is not the same as security, but they're often so closely related that you can't ignore one at the expense of the other. Can we come up as engineers with technical solutions to derive security or digital privacy architectures that will also have a positive effect on privacy? So what we don't try to do is to do things that apply like out of our own lanes here. We're not trying to get cybersecurity involved with that around the world, but there are many different methods to start the conversation. The digital privacy model is not supposed to be prescriptive of any solutions to that, but to show where are the gaps that we need to look at and discuss these things, whether it's at conferences or white papers or whatever. Have something on the table to say, where is my niche that I can help with these conversations? So we are reaching out to both technology and policy-oriented users and readers on this to exceed those expectations of privacy for a given environment. Maybe I work in business. Maybe I work in fintech. Maybe I work in policy or marketing organizations. All of this is equally important across the board. So what is our subgroup actually working on right now? Well, we've done the digital privacy model. We're also undertaking a multi-year effort to put out some scientific surveys, statistical surveys of international subject matter experts about their perceptions of privacy in order to get them involved with asking people around the world about their perceptions of privacy. And one question we have to wrestle with is privacy a universally shared individual expectation? Does everybody inherently believe that they have some privacy? Some people would violently say, yes, everybody thinks the same about this and everybody expects some degree of privacy. Others will say, well, look around the world and it's clear that not everybody does think of that way. So we do have some widely divergent individual perspectives as well as widely divergent public policies. And different countries have, in some cases, diametrically opposed policies about what they should respect as people's privacy. So we want to look at this also across all the different political, geographical, technological boundaries. And as a step for doing that, we've already started on several roundtables, conferences. We had one earlier this year in Washington, D.C., which attracted, I want to say, at least 30 or 40 people in that. Really got the ball kicked off. We'll also have another one in October, another one in early 2025. I don't want to give you the specifics of that. I want you to go to the website so you'll get the most recent information because it is, as any conference, is somewhat dynamic. But we also want to include different industries. We want to include academia, the security professionals, and especially international members. Within our own little subgroup here about digital privacy, we've had people from far East Asia, from Japan, from Mexico, from Norway. It's really difficult to have meetings when you have about 15 different time zones, but that's where we are. We need to bring in and really reach out to people from all over the world to keep this conversation going. Most recently, even within the last couple months, the White House has put out new executive orders about digital privacy. We have some new draft legislation that are trying to make federal law in this area. Several states have done really some interesting things that the federal government is probably not flexible enough to do. And this is everywhere. Canada has has some growing practices. We've had members from Mexico that have had really high interest in some of the things we're doing. Spain, Italy, our co-chair for the Digital Privacy Initiative, I believe, is from Italy. So we need to look at this model as just a step to not to take sides, but to bring people together on these issues. We are also the current digital privacy policy statement, the official statement of IEEE USA, is expiring in November. So we're working on a project to review, the old policy. But I'll tell you, within the last 3 years, when they put that into effect, look at how fast AI and all of the other threats against digital privacy have come to the fore. And we really need to take a new look at how we do this and come up with some new policies. That will be the decision really of IEEE USA, but they're really looking for some help in putting that together. So if you're interested in that, again, all of these things, either contact us at our website or our email address, or you can contact me directly. So we're looking for feedback on our model itself. It's a work in progress. You can use it. You can help us improve it. So one of the big questions is, what technologies do we have, or what subject experts we have that can fill the gaps that we may have missed in our model, or using the model? Who can I connect with in my own sphere of influence to make a difference? And then, of course, we would like your individual feedback. So that in that regard, I'll kind of get off the stage here, and I think what I'd like to know is questions you might have. So we'll start into that in a few minutes. But I'll leave this up for a few minutes here before I take the slideshow down. And if you want to take a screenshot or whatever, this is the Digital Privacy Initiative website. You can ask questions through our staff at Digital Privacy Info at IEEE. And I put my own contact information if you'd like to contact me. Blockframe is basically a supply chain company, but we have probably, we're working right now in development, actually going into production soon on the, well, we have sort of minimum viable product for probably, we think, the world's most advanced blockchain and security system that will be applied also to digital privacy. It's a little bit nascent right now, but we're working on that, trying to apply it to several digital privacy actions. So John, I'll turn it back over to you as our host, and if you'd like to, either you or Art, I don't know how you want to bring up
I'll start. First of all, I'll ask folks if they have a questions to unmute themselves and then ask a question, because I don't see any questions in the chat. I do have some questions, so I'll just start off, and then hopefully that will generate other questions. One of the concerns I have is this concerning about companies giving a choice to individuals. Is that part of the discussion of what data they can collect, and that the data is not tied to an individual as they collect data?
Collecting the individual.
Yeah, let's say they're trying to collect data, maybe to train their AI or something, and then you know they will want, there's some sensitive information that they just don't want to have disclosed. If it's just a data collection effort and not tied to an individual, do the individuals who are inputting their data have a choice?
Yeah, that's a very important question. I think getting back to that example of when you sign up to go to the hospital or go to your doctor, there'll be some privacy questions in that. But if you've ever been to the hospital lately, they may say, wouldn't you like to share the information about your health records and your surgery with our expert analysts somewhere? They never define where that is, in order to help society. Okay, we would like to know, you know, if you got a malignant appendix or something like that, would you like to share that information? And it's sort of like clickbait. Do you agree to help the knowledge of everybody in the world about, you know, to solve the problems with cancer? If people say, yes, I agree, basically they'll take your data probably and use it for that collective analysis. But do people really understand that's how their data are being used? So one of the interesting things that one of our subgroups is looking at right now is simplifying or coming up with a better solution so people are more aware of what they are giving away. And our standards group, I think it is working with the Creative Commons tool to make that maybe quicker, but maybe that would be sufficient to give a better level of fidelity than just saying, I accept all your terms and conditions. So maybe that, I don't know if that fully answered your question or not.
Yeah, that addresses some of it. In fact, that was triggering another question in my mind of terms and conditions. If they can simplify that, because I really don't read, to tell you the truth, of all the terms and conditions. And it's just, you know, there has to be some way of flagging things that are unusual or something like that from a company, or that there's some baseline that needs to be done so that people, you know, have trust in providing the data. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, and we could, but except we can always trust Facebook and Google to have our best interest in mind, right? Somebody made a really good observation in a book I read. The business practice of Bitcoin is that nobody will ever know who you are, right?
Correct.
They
It's
don't know who you are,
decentralized
and that's the
and
way it
no one
works.
knows.
The business practice of some of the big IT companies or the big data companies, their business practice is that everybody knows who you are, but you can't control it. You know, again, maybe Facebook, Google, you know, any IT social media platform does not make their money off of making you anonymous, usually. I think Sin Quinn had a question there, John.
No, I don't have a question, Kent, but I have to add, since the framework and foundation subgroup just finished meeting at 8 p.m. 8 p.m. today. We had a 7 to 8 p.m. call, and John's question is exactly what that group is trying to accomplish. So we were, you know, the thought is no one ever read those very long terms and conditions, and whether there's a way to simplify that exchange of information between you as a consumer and another entity in terms of how your data should be treated. For example, can we boil down the questions like, I don't want you to sell my data. I don't want you to share my data. I want to be able to remove my data. Can we make those terms and conditions much easier for a consumer? Because like you were saying, John, no one really, those are very long terms and conditions, and no one really read those privacy statements. We just kind of check it off and use the service that we want to use. So I just had to add that since we just finished our call between 7 to 8, Kent. Thank you.
And I think I might have said standards group, but it's the what was it again? Framework.
That's the framework and foundation group that make
Foundations group.
Yeah, yes.
And I think they have talked about Creative Commons, right?
Yes, they basically they wanted to leverage that kind of concept where Creative Commons, provide copyright protection of an artist's creation, and using that same concept that our data, our personal data, how we want that data to be used, and how that we want the data to be treated, and how do we communicate that with the entity that we are interacting with, whether it's the company whether I'm trying to buy something from a particular company, for example. How do you interact with that entity? But anyway, sorry, Ken, I really had to interrupt since we just finished that call between 7 to 8.
Exactly,
No problem.
and we are a 24/7 donut shop worldwide on Digital Privacy Initiative, right? If we don't have a meeting going on somewhere, we'll try to create one. But what Sin Quinn was just describing, though, is why we want more people to get involved with this. And we'd invite anybody on this particular conference or listing later to understand the real importance of this. And if any of these things strike your fancy as, gee, I'd like to get involved with one of these subgroups because I like the medical industry, or I like connected vehicle problems. Whatever it is in your own field, there'll probably be a place within the Digital Privacy Initiative for you to move that forward. And when I said Creative Commons, I don't mean necessarily the published. If you're not familiar with Creative Commons, it's kind of like a light patent or a trademark. They're using that, but it doesn't go through all the formal legal process of doing that. It's a little bit less formal, but it's much easier to administer and to initiate. So that's why we're looking at that particular concept.
So I got a question here related to this last thread.
And this is Gene Freeman speaking.
Yes, hi. The question is, I get a insurance policy, and I read through the policy, and then couple months later, I get, here's an update to the policy and the several paragraphs that have been rewritten. How is this digital realm different than any other legal document we get and have to sign, every day? I mean, I'm part of my homeowners association. We get documents that come in. We're going to work on your roof. You need to sign a contract. And, clause number 4 has something that's a pain in the butt. And, we need to be aware of it. How's this any different?
Well, there could be a couple of different levels of that, Gene. For instance, again, I'm not making a commercial for our own company here at Blockframe, but we're looking at a lot of things like this that are, let's say, in the transactional space, smart contracts, things like that. And that's what you're talking about. Basically, somebody comes out and says, my homeowners association would like you to make a legally binding commitment to collective arbitration or something like that, and it's in there. If somebody has either constructed that, you might want to know who constructed that language. Basically go back and, so you don't shoot the messenger, you'd like to go back and find out who the idiot was who wrote that in the first place. By putting that on a blockchain, you can find out who actually did it, okay, and narrow down a lot of those functions. And as you go through and actually make what you're talking about with a homeowner association is a contract, okay? And it has to be a mutual contract. So who's the arbitrator to actually put some of those things together and record it in a fair way so you can go back and review it, or go to the next homeowners meeting and say, we don't like this, and you're the one who did it. So I think Chris Gerog has more on response to your question.
Yeah, the creative common thought was to make a series of icons, like pictographs, that would represent each little thing you're signing on to or giving up with that policy, so you can see it from a high level. If they have this pictograph, I'm agreeing to give up inferred data. If they have this pictograph, I'm agreeing to give up my content for medical research. If I have this pictograph, then I have the right to refuse or to retract the data, and to get a series of very easy to view imagery that could be released as the Creative Commons that would follow around the contracting or whatever agreements that you do, and just give consumers and service offers a common, easy, visual kind of definitions.
Okay, so this is interesting. So what you're saying is we could actually use this and go backwards, if you will, to a classical contract and apply this same set of techniques. Because what I was saying is, what's different here? Contracts are a pain in the neck. The difference when I get these Microsoft updates is there's so many of them that come at me. Okay, so that's different. But how else is it different? Now you're implying if we put things on a digital architecture, we may be able to provide some mechanisms that even you could take your classical insurance contract, put that in a similar format, and perhaps it would overall make it simpler when you sign a contract to know what the implications are. Is that right?
I think so. That's the intent. We'd love to have your help in these groups. If you're willing to join and bring your ideas to it, we definitely appreciate it.
And I just wanted to stick up go back to this other slide. I work with Synquin and others on the policy and legislation, but what she just mentioned here was the framework and foundation subgroup. We're also looking at ISO and other, U.S. standards, and all of those other things that we talked about here, healthcare, connected vehicles. We wanted to make this a broader community of different groups that are all interested in digital privacy in their own area. We've also, within the legal standards, we put out some papers already that look at the history of these digital problems, going back to the 1920s, I think, in some cases. And the digital, what do you call it? The digital divide, I guess you could call it. This is new. I mean, we've had privacy legislation that goes back decades. But when you get into digital or IT technologies, it's out of the bag now. I mean, you can, and one of the big problems is it's permanent. If you've got an adverse post on Facebook or on TikTok or something like that, that will be digital forever, and you can never get rid of it.
Right. So some of these attributes that you're talking about, which group sort of deals with differentiating, if you will, between a standard contract that was written in text and has been done, for the last several hundred years, and what we're doing digitally? Some things are obviously the same, right?
I think it's not any one particular group in this, because we try to get into our educational systems here. And Quinn, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we have 4 educational products out from our education and training group already that are accessible. I think there might be a fee, or you might have to pay an IEEE fee or something to get to those. But we want to have these in conferences. Bring these. As a matter of fact, if we have a large conference, we may have a breakout room of every one of these different subgroups, especially just healthcare. It is so discrete in the number of problems we have in healthcare. Yeah, I mean, hackers took down the privacy of the entire British healthcare system worldwide. The FBI and others have put out joint warnings about our energy supply. They say, don't worry about the future threat. You've already been hacked.
Yeah.
Our energy grids are already compromised. And you look at connected vehicles, just within, modern smart cars, let's call them, there are probably 20 different points of access that you can access, or hackers can access, as the car is driving by. So this is not just one working group, because once I have have looked at those electric vehicles, now I got to bring that, or the, let's say your energy grid. I'd like to go back and talk to the standards group and make a ICAO or Casey standard that we can actually use, for throughout the government or throughout the international community for creating new products or whatever, or enforcing them.
Yes, thank you. That's helpful.
Okay, Kent, I'm just going to read a comment from Scott Dixon.
Scott?
This all started with courts deciding click-through licenses are valid. What is needed is a uniform commercial code for digital commerce that meets common expectations, and any expectations for a specific case could be noted. Hopefully, most would refuse to do business with businesses that take exception to the UCC. Any comments on that?
Yeah, getting back to what I just said about our subgroups, that question itself addresses a lot, goes across all of these different groups. That's why we need to work together on these. I think he suggested we need to have a common standard. Well, we have some common standards. ICAO has some standards. Some of the California legislation has some standards. But there's a question: how do you approach these things? Should there be a national, federal, or let's say within the executive branch, an enforcement or regulatory regime that is responsible for enforcing all of these standards from a central location, Or, and my background is in state legislatures. How does that, what's the role of state legislatures or even your local police force in enforcing these things? I mean, I got a big hack myself from a bunch of cyber criminals who, basically broke into, put false charges in my bank account. They were still trying to unwind. I don't mind talking at that level about it, but I'm not alone. This is happening all the time. And these hackers they're looking for, I mean, I get spam, 20 times a day at least. And they're all looking for some way of breaking into your social system and getting information, personal, private information about you. And it's coming in by email, everything else, and they're going to exploit senior citizens. They're going to exploit anybody they can find that's going to make them money, including, the academic systems. I think the academic system is either one or two in the targeting mechanisms of cyber hackers. So this is why we have to have a conversation with cybersecurity people, because the effect of cybersecurity compromises can also compromise your digital privacy. So this is an all hands on deck type of thing, which is why in the wisdom of our future directions committees at IEEE, this is one of a very, very few initiatives like this throughout IEEE worldwide to take this on as a professional industry issue in digital privacy.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Yes, and this is Karen Wolf speaking for the record.
Hi.
Hi, Karen.
What about cases where one person's privacy may affect another's? For example, my parents both have Parkinson's disease. They chose to give their DNA for studies in case there should be a genetic cause. But obviously, if some company gets hold of that data and there is a genetic cause, that affects my privacy, my sister's privacy, and so on. Or even simpler things such as you go on Facebook, you tag other people in a photo who may not know they've been tagged. And that photo contains time information, date information, GPS information. What about those cases where one person's privacy may affect another's? There's no way of getting permission for that.
Absolutely. Actually, there was legislation this spring in the Colorado legislature. If you're interested in looking at that, you can contact me about that. But there's a new bill that came through that I think is unique. But it was, and I can't use the right terminology, but it was basically looking at your DNA and putting some safeguards on that. Now, is anybody going to enforce that? I don't know, because we also know from, just public press reports that the Chinese have started collecting DNA databases of individuals. And as part of our IEEE discussions, as a matter of fact, it was one of the first discussions we had representatives from the United States, from the European Union, and from Asia that were sort of speaking for China. They were speaking about the Chinese privacy laws, and they do have now privacy laws in China. Unfortunately, they're written in Chinese, so most people can't read it, but part of their philosophy is that any technology or anything that comes, or data that comes into China, it comes under the ownership of the Chinese government forever. So that's a real conflict we have between the European Union, the United States, and China. We have already had discussions of that through IEEE sponsored conferences, but that is you are wise to be very, very afraid of that. And again, it's power. People are trying to get your data to exploit your situation. which is why all this is so important and why we need to engage across the board legally and judicially and everything else to try to push back on those that would exploit people, in your case, of medical data. I think Rob had a question.
Yes, I just wanted to jump in. Karen had a good point about the Facebook thing. I'm not on Facebook, never have. I keep a very low profile on social media. Matter of fact, I have on none whatsoever. And yet my wife posts photos of me all over Facebook because she's on it. And because of that, Facebook has an entire record of me that I have no control over because I'm not on there. And that gets back to your point about that kind of thing. And that should not be allowed at all. And yet they have, again, Facebook has an entire record of me. They know who I am and everything else without me saying anything or doing anything just because my wife posts photos of me. I mean, what kind of control do we have over that?
And they have it forever. They have it forever. It's once it's in the cloud, it's everywhere. Yeah, I sympathize with you, but having been in the state legislature for 12 years and having my website and my cell phone, I mean, I had my cell phone number on my business cards for 12 years. It's still the same cell phone number if you want to give me a call. I am so public that I get attacked all the time. So, you know, I have no private life, I guess, in a practical way anymore. That's really going to be digitally private. But, you know, I'm just an example of probably everybody else out there that they're coming after you. I think Chris had a question, and probably answering Rob's question. Chris, I can't hear you. Are you on mute by any chance?
Of course I'm on mute. Yeah, comment on that a little bit. On the model that Ken showed you, the inferred data kind of fits into the category that you're talking about. And I think that's why we look at starting the model to bring these conversations and start making potential for, now if you have inferred data, how is it addressed by all the outside influencers? What's the responsibility? What's the individual's need for or desires for inferences? What's the legal requirements for inferences? What's the economic? What's the company's requirements for inferences? And we just have this is the start. This initiative is only 2 years old in its third year. So we're still in the discussion phases. And as Ken said, it's a work in progress, that we hope that this will leverage the future to define who all the actors are and what things they're doing. And now if we start the Creative Commons and have it a way that they can tag, whenever you make the selection to tag somebody, this little icon says this is inferred data, or you enable this permission that says inferred data is going to be available in this category. But it's still at the point of categorizing everything, so we have a way to talk about the needs in all these different areas. That gives a little bit further explanation, but it's not there yet, and it still needs miles to go.
And inferences is basically a created term that we came up with for the want of any other definition. But think about virtual reality when teenagers are going into chat rooms or online to play whatever the most popular game is this week. You know, they're going in there and they're using avatars really to disguise who they are. I mean, intentionally, they want to be Chris, what was the name of that funny avatar somebody had? Was it called the Gurog? Yeah.
Yeah, you like that one, huh?
Yeah, there's actually one in one of these games called the Gurog. But so the problem is, and my son and daughter-in-law mentored a worldwide Harry Potter first-person simulation game for years, and people want to break into that in order to cyber stalk the participants, especially if they can target, everything else that's been coming out about young teenage girls. That was a big issue that came up in recent congressional hearings. I think it was talking about, I don't know, one of the big IT companies. But that is very real. If people can come in under false pretenses to get inside a game in order to socially profile somebody, they will probably have an ulterior motive, try to get their information and then say, okay, well, here, I've got some candy for you, come out and let's set up a date or something. So this is very, very real, very dangerous. And we got to the extent where we were able to counter hack the hackers, find out their URLs and threaten to report them to Interpol because they were actually in Denmark. So we have to be very interactive and aggressive in setting up effective ethical systems in order to police ourselves in these things.
Yeah, I'd like to share a story that happened to me. A friend of mine was showing a gun collection, and I was holding a gun, and another friend took a picture of me, and then I asked him to send it to my phone just for souvenir purposes, and then I get a notification from Facebook saying that this picture may be offensive, and so they already flagged it as offensive, but at least they gave me a choice to see it or not. But
well, that's why we have red flag laws. If you're under suspicion, they'll, that's part of the problem. Making an accusation against somebody like that, again, becomes permanent. And what's the legal relief for that without going to court? There probably isn't one.
Right.
I have another question related to that, which is related to the privacy of minors. For example, if you're a minor, your parents can choose for you what data about you, for example, your medical data, is shared with various people. But what if when the minor becomes an adult, they don't agree with that? They don't want their data to be used for studies or for things like that. Right now, there's really no mechanism for them to effectively unconsent as an adult.
Well, that's a really good point, and we've looked at some of those issues within state government. Again, everything that anybody can come up with an example, I could probably come up with an example that it's really worse than you really believe. Okay. The Colorado State government for years has been collecting what they call longitudinal data. In other words, kindergarten through graduate school.
Right.
Every year, they're going to get a slice of your individual data, every course that you've ever taken, maybe every time you've gone to the school nurse, okay, because they keep records. But all those goes into a comprehensive identity. I guess I still got this slide up here. This is your identity that's getting over time that creates who you are. And the metadata that's collected on people may never go away. That's extremely dangerous. And even though you think you might have parental control of this, do you have parental control over what's collected in schools, how that's aggregated in, for instance, your state Department of Education? Where does that data go? Who do they share it with? How is that transported from kindergarten to high school to college to adulthood? Because you're never going to be able to expunge that. It can be terrifying if it's exploited like that. And again,
Yes.
Some governments don't care. As a legislature, I think I can safely say that. A lot of government organizations that don't care about your individual privacy as long as they have the data available to them and they can control it.
That makes sense. It also comes back to things like healthcare data. If you had a health condition as a child and someone has released that data, a lot of people might be concerned that that might affect your ability, say, to get health insurance or life insurance later, because you can't control who might have that data then when you become an adult.
And that's why we have the big debate about pre-existing conditions. Well, according to who? Who knows that you've, had leukemia when you were 10 years old? Who knows that? Well, they might be able to find that out. Yeah. And it might be disqualifying for your own health care.
Right.
So that's why we have a medical digital privacy subgroup to look at exactly those types of issues as well.
Thank you.
What's your experience in terms of other countries? We're driven frequently in this country by a profit motive. Not every country is quite as wound around that and may be doing more in terms of privacy protections. Have you found that there are some countries that seem to be ahead of us in that game, as obviously some are behind?
There's some that are definitely behind. I think Chris is going to tell you a story about that.
Okay.
By the way, while he's trying to find his mute button, we found that the most commonly discussed sentence on any of these conferences is, "Are you sure you're not on mute?"
Yeah, so that is the reason why in the model we have the social influence, because literally the first full year of the Digital Privacy Initiative, it took us to realize that people from different parts of the world had entirely different viewpoints on privacy. And we found at least 4 kind of distinct models of how privacy is viewed throughout the world. In Europe, it is very individual-centric with GDPR, and very much like our model from looking at it from the center. In some of the Asian countries, they have a finger vertical model where the individuals have privacy protection from each other, but the government above culturally should have the right, and they kind of agree on this as a culture, to come down into each of the fingers of the individual. In certain, we'll say, African, Middle Eastern countries, there's a very stratified layer of privacy that says everybody at a higher level should be able to see lower level people, but not upward. And at the same time, people at each level should be able to view each other to find out who's doing what in kind of a checking quality or behavioral practices. And then in the US, there's more of a model of the companies and the organizations have control over, and it's buyer beware. Whatever policy they make for the users. Now that's changing a little bit with some of the states having different practices, but these 4, and there might be even more, kind of distinct kind of social views on privacy make it difficult to just have a global decision on how privacy is handled, because people socially view it differently.
I'll hitchhike on Chris's statement there, and I won't mention the country, but Chris was traveling internationally, let's say further east than we are, and went into a shop to buy a drink or soda or whatever, and went to the next shop or a couple other shops down the street. They already knew that he had bought that particular product at the first shop. And they are apparently fine with that. In other words, no privacy at all. If you've had a transaction, everybody's going to know about it, at least within those shops. I don't know how they.
Well, if you're a higher level, say the upper class, they don't want the lower class to see that, but all the lower class wants to watch each other. And we'll just say it is a philosophy in world religion that matches that, everybody knowing that you went to the right organizational, right day of the week, you went to your religious event, things like that, and knowing that you weren't in the house of ill repute, and they all seem to agree that this is acceptable.
Well, and everybody's seen the write-ups about China having sort of a social compliance score. In other words, here's what we want you to do. and you need to stay within that compliance score, and they will collect that data from everything from biometric data to your geolocation to facial recognition, everything else. And if you comply with what you're told to do, you have a higher score, then you are able to either get a job or be able to go to the store or anything else. If you don't comply, we're going to turn that around on you and make sure you're penalized for it. So this is a
Any
real
other
downer. I was hoping we'd have some fun tonight, but it keeps spiraling down, doesn't it?
No, if there's any other questions from the audience, I do have one question that maybe I shouldn't be concerned about, is that technology is changing so fast, and then let's say the politicians create laws that hampers your positive pursuits of AI. For example, let's say like it takes me, in the old ways before AI, it takes me 8 hours to create a video, a short minute video, but now it takes me 1/2 hour to an hour. And then they pass laws because someone did something bad in video. Should I worry about something like that? If we don't get involved in this, if the individual companies don't get involved in this process, that politicians will start passing laws that basically hampers our pursuit of, happiness, our intellectual property or whatever.
Yeah, I think one of the things that affect that is a good example that, and let me stop sharing here for a second. That's a good example of the crossover, the influences between digital privacy and digital security. AI, like the internet, when the internet started, there were no concerns about the security of the internet. I mean, and that's still what we're living with. And I think the same thing is true with AI. Another layer, though, once you have an AI, let's say an embedded AI system within your industrial architecture, let's just make that generic, it may be easier to hack into your system by hacking into the AI platform. So you may, by using AI, it's quite possible that you're diluting the security that you think you have, just because it's increased the attack surface. And if I can get into the whatever that AI platform is, and I can say, well, now I know John Santiago is online doing whatever he does with my, GPT, whatever it is. Maybe I can attack that GPT platform and now get into through your security firewall or whatever, and get into your server in your house and somehow infiltrate that, or infiltrate a network or the cloud or whatever. It may make it actually easier for that. So we have to be concerned about both security and privacy. And it's not two different communities anymore, or it shouldn't be. We need to bring those things together. I think Chris had another answer to that too.
Yeah, just a further comment that, to date in the technological revolution, if you don't have a big pool of data, a collection of data that makes you revenue, you probably don't have the means to buy the technology to secure it. The individuals to date really haven't had the tools, and that's something that I see changing over the next couple of years, is tools for individual privacy will start to exist. And the consumers then will have a decision to make on products that offer that versus using platforms that don't, as many of you have talked about earlier in today's event. And you're going to have to make that decision and start to be conscious. But until now, those tools just weren't out there. Your decision was, who do I give my data to, not whether do I start to control my data moving forward or not. And start looking for those, start identifying those, and that's the trend to kind of watch out for.
And right now we have about 20 people in the chat room here, and I'd be willing to bet that, I mean, we've probably got, almost 20 different industries represented here. you know, we're coming from a different, I mean, IEEE is pretty, I mean, yeah, okay, so we're all electrical engineers, right? Well, maybe not. I mean, we come from different backgrounds. I mean, we probably have some marketing people here, people with MBAs, maybe some lawyers in the group. Question is, from where you are now, would there be an interest in getting into one of these, you know, particular subgroups or anything like that? And again, I just make the pitch. There is something for everybody who's really interested professionally in working in this area. And we're losing, folks. I mean, we're losing both the fight for cybersecurity and we're losing the fight for digital privacy. And we need, you know, there are a lot of people interested in it, a lot of elected officials that are very interested in this, but they don't know how to do it, is my impression. And I've talked to the, you know, National Association of State Legislators conference, and, you know, there are not many hardcore engineers in groups like that have any idea what they're talking about. So educating them is a very heavy lift. Even educating or talking to their staffers is a very heavy lift. But we need to start keeping this discussion going throughout a professional organization like IEEE, because unlike other groups, we've got chapters in every state of the union. And I think probably almost all the universities and almost all the countries in the world too. So that's why the Digital Privacy Initiative, I think, was started to cross-cut all of those barriers and those stovepipes and hopefully come up with some practical policies that are ethical, that can actually carry this message across national and state lines. Somebody asked earlier about, you know, who you're working with internationally. We've had like the working group I chair, we've had 3 or 4 people. Sim Quinn can probably add some more, but we had a group from Mexico. The Mexican government dropped in on it. They were very interested in this, of protecting individuals' privacy from a policy perspective. And I think they genuinely were very interested. Other countries need to have that dialogue with us. I don't know if the U.S. government will help them, or the state of Colorado or California. I don't know if they'll help them or not. But on a professional, technical level, we need to do our job, follow our ethical principles, and try to get this message out, you know, wherever we can. And John, I think we got about 5 minutes left here.
Yeah, I was going to say, if there are no other questions, we can start closing. Kent, do you have any, was that your closing remarks, or do you want to add anything to what you just said?
Not specifically. I will put up my last slide again of our contact information, just to kind of get off the stage here. And I think everybody can, oops, that's not the right slide. So I'll try to go forward. How about there? So again, you're welcome to contact our digital privacy organization, or if you'd like to contact me direct, you know, our email addresses are up there. And I hope some of you do, and I appreciate for everybody who's stuck with this for an hour and a half. I think we've had pretty good representation of this, and I think, John, then this will be, I don't know, are other people able to access this later?
What I'm going to do is that if this is recorded, and I think it is,
yeah.
Post it on in our website, and I'll post that as well, and then I'll send the link to you, making sure everybody is aware, because this is a very important discussion to increase the awareness, not only about engineering, but about digital privacy. And I guess part of our job is to educate the public and let them, and the more they get educated, the more they'll get involved
and John,
in how they affect their life.
Let's not leave without mentioning you too, and your position, because you are now at the educational chair for all of, is it Region 5?
Yes.
IEEE, which has more states than we can, maybe like you'd have to speed talk all the different states that are involved with that.
Yeah.
But basically, Western and
Yeah.
Mid-American states. So if you would like,
And I try to increase also outside our region as well to do the collaboration. And
Yeah,
we
we've
got a
set this up.
pretty good list of co-hosts so far, and this is just the beginning, I believe, in terms of increasing the awareness of this very important topic that you've outlined and briefed, you and Chris briefed, and the rest of the participants here.
well, I'd just like to make sure that people realize that if you, are interested in the educational aspects of Region 5 or IEEE in general, John is in a very strategic location to help connect to that type of, that type of community as well.
Exactly. Well, I just want to thank you, Kent, Chris, and everyone here for sticking it out. Not many people left. We started off near 20, and we just didn't go any lower than that. Maybe 19 or 18, but and it was a lot of active discussion, and I'm sure this is going to be a continuation on this important topic as people get more aware of what AI can do and the implications in terms of privacy. I try to post frequent things. I already posted some stuff on Facebook to have people be aware of it in my corner of the world. So anyway, I'd like to thank you, Kent, and Art for helping me out in educating me on how to use WebEx. And I still got a lot to learn. And Chris as well, and everyone here. So thank you and have a great night.
John, I think we had one.
Go ahead.
I think we got one more question from.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it just says from the Baltimore chapter here. Okay. Hi, Olu. So they probably showed up because they're in the East Coast, so it's kind of late for them maybe.
Yes.
So,
hey, do you have a question?
Yes.
I just wanted to add thanks to everybody. I'm the West area chair, and so the Colorado sections are in my area for Region 5. And I know John's done a really good job. He sent also information to the meeting in Arkansas, but I would like to encourage all of you, if you have pictures from tonight or any write-up, if you can submit it by April 25th to the Region 5 electronic newsletter, then they will print it on May 1st. So every month you guys are doing something, regardless if it's a webinar, if you have a meeting and you have a short synopsis and a contact point, please feel free to submit it, and I will send the contact link to John again so he can share it with the group. But please share this information because we all need it now and we're going to need it in the future. So I just appreciate everybody's help.
When's the deadline for this upcoming newsletter?
So they like to have them somewhere between April 20th and 25th so that it will be published then on May 1st.
Got it.
So, John, I'll send that and you can share it as far wide as possible because we love having information, from members who are actively doing activities that we all need to know about.
Okay.
And also, I might mention Cinquan Hawkins, who has joined us all evening, has done a great job in getting this whole digital privacy initiative managed, and she's been able to repost this conference's information on social media, throughout our digital privacy contacts. So if you have local events, again, contact those email addresses that I had up earlier, and or contact Cinquan directly. She's IEEE professional, so.
Yes, I'm IEEE staff, so the info, the email that Kent share comes to me, digital privacy info at IEEE.org. So yeah, just feel free to connect with me. I'd be happy to promote your event as well.
And then on June 10th and 11th, IEEE USA office is sponsoring a workshop in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, all around the CHIPS Act. And Sioux Falls is in Region 4, where I'm in Rapid City, South Dakota in Region 5. But have you connected with Melissa Carl at the IEEE USA office to share any of this data, any of your meetings, anything like that? Because she's the one that's going to be running the program on June 10th and 11th, and around the country on the CHIPS Act. So how about if I put some information into John Santiago and then he can share it forward? I think that'd
Okay.
be the best.
Okay.
Yeah, we are
Sounds
also
good.
very well connected with you at IEEE USA. So,
Yeah,
but
so
thank
do
you.
you know Melissa Carl?
We do. She's actually helping us plan an event out in Silicon Valley because we are going to be bringing some legislators and local legislators as well as possibly folks from the DC area as well at the federal level. So yeah, she's fantastic, and we're working with her and Russ Harrison as well.
Great. And so if there's anything you want, even publications or flyers or anything, you know, Melissa's got control of the event for Sioux Falls for Region 4.
And again, I'll put another plug in early 2025. Digital Privacy Initiatives planning that Silicon Valley conference. So that could be a first of all, it's not in Washington D.C. That's one advantage. It's actually where engineers actually do stuff out in Silicon Valley. So it's an outreach as well as an attempt to bring in that community into some of these discussions.
Great. Thank you so much for letting me in verbally there at the very end, and I appreciated Don trying to co-host this all over the USA, and he's done a great job, so I appreciate everybody's help.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, everybody. If Art, you can stay out for just 1 minute, and then everybody, I wish you have a great rest of the evening. And thank you, Kent, Chris.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Art? Art? Quick question. Can't hear you, though.
Oh, there we go.
Okay. I don't expect you to go to the rest of the presentations, but I don't know if anybody else. I was just wondering, do I need a co-host code to do this?
Your IEEE should, like when you log in, it should make you the host.
Okay.
Gotcha. Is it, if you go to IEEE WebEx meetings, like I think you should have a link from it.
Okay.
If you follow that, it should bring you in and make you the host. But yeah, we can look at that quick.
I just want to thank you again for doing this, the first one, and then the
Yeah, I mean,
this
it's,
one. I'll hang in there.
I have lots of potential volunteers that can.
Okay.
I mean, but obviously it's always better. I think we got one tomorrow night at the same time.
Yeah, I hope. I've been, just to let you know, I've been trying to get a hold of him for the past 2 weeks, and I guess he's really busy, but I'm just going to cross my fingers that he'll show up, because a month ago he said he can do it anytime during this week after 5. So I hopefully, he acknowledged that in one of the emails, but it's about 2 weeks since then, if you understand what I mean.
So yeah, we should. Hopefully you hear from him tomorrow at some point. But I did make. I think I made. Let me make sure. John Santiago.
Okay, so I don't need a co-host code, but if I use the code to change things or something to reactivate myself as co-host, right? I need that code to do that, right?
You if you're listed as a person hosting the meeting,
Okay.
it should work.
Okay.
But I can give you codes, like the host pin and stuff.
Yeah, the host pin. That's the word.
Yeah. I can give you the full thing, and then.
Okay. And
Want me to email that over to you for the
will
next
this be
meeting
true
here?
for all the 4 other presentations?
They should all run fine. I have you listed as a
Okay.
sure as a co-host. I'm checking it right now.
Okay.
I'm making sure because these things. Let's see. Advanced options. the first person. Maybe it's one of my big frustrations with IEEE WebEx.
Yeah, understand.
The the hosting.
Because what I did when I logged into this one, I logged in as a guest and launched from browser. It didn't want to go. It seemed to do a circular function on me.
Okay.
And I said, forget it. I'm just going to do launch meeting and sign in as a guest.
Interesting. Okay, yeah. So I mean, I should definitely make sure I get in the meeting or somebody that has host privileges, because usually you're at IEEE.org email address is registered. So
yeah, and okay, it's kind of okay. I would register as John.Santiago for IEEE, but then when I logged in long time ago as an IEEE member, I use another personal email. It's a non-IEEE address. So, but I use this email to send messages to you to set up a WebEx.
yeah.
So I don't know if there's a conflict between my personal email and my IEEE email.
So your IEEE email is
It's
the one
John Santiago at IEEE.org.
yeah, and that one I think I should be able to. That one should be able to be a co-host, but right now it's acting like I can make anybody a co-host because I'm a super host. So it's actually WebEx doesn't have, they have co-host, make host, make presenter,
Right.
and when like somebody like Matt Francis gets on, it bumps me from the host because he's the same level as me.
Yeah.
It's really great.
Okay.
But I can get on tomorrow at that time. That should work fine.
Okay. I know my intent was not this many presentations, and then I just can't say no to people, I guess. But I really appreciate you really helping me out as well.
Yep.
And if you can't, I can ask Gene, and he's most of the time available to help me out.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Okay. All right. What time is it in your place? You're at right now?
9 p.m. Central Time.
Okay.
Like
Mine
most
is
of the
8,
regions,
so
okay.
I'll let you go and see your family.
Okay. Yeah. It'll. I'll get on. I'll get on tomorrow. I'll have some people, or I'll get somebody to get on. It'll either be me or somebody else who knows how to WebEx. So.
Yeah, I know a little bit, but if there's like all of a sudden something I just never experienced before, I'm going, okay, what do I do next?
Yeah. Well, honestly,
I haven't encountered all the issues yet.
Yeah. Well, you're in the club. The problem is even Tom Coughlin has that problem. So.
Okay. All right, Art.
Don't worry about it.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
John.
Okay.
Have a good
Take
night.
care. Thank
Yep.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.